Welcome to this week's SV Lynx video. Well, last week we finished fairing the port hull, so now both hulls are ready for the copper coat anti-fouling. But before we get to that, on the port hull we need to put the barrier coat, which is what we're going to do this week.
Right, and we're going to get that done, and then it'll only be a few days after it's on before we are getting to the copper coat, but that'll be next week's video. But this week, we're also going to take a look at something kind of fun. Schionning Designs has been working on the Solitaire line. When I first got interested in it, there was only one, the 1490. And I worked with them, collaborated on a whole new design, and that's how the 1520 came around. And they added that to the Solitaire line now. But they've decided that they want to expand the Solitaire line. So they have with a new smaller, about 44 foot, which is the 1360, and a new larger one, which is the 1740, I believe. And that one's around 60 feet long. So there are four now of various sizes in the Solitaire line. And if you're not familiar with the Solitaire line, what they are is keeping the performance side of Schionning boats, which have always been great performing boats, and adding a little bit more of the cruising layouts and styles of a boat, yet still not losing speed on that too much. So they want to make a little bit more comfortable for cruisers, but still a fast boat. So I want to go over all four models very briefly at the end of this, because we are offering to help people with the purchasing of their Solitaire line. If they contact us through our website, just go to www.svlynx.com, and there you'll find that there is a whole bunch of information on there, including a link to consulting. Now, even if you don't want to hire us to do any consulting on your boat, and consulting involves helping you lay out changes to any of these models to better customize it to what you want. But even if you don't want that, we'll still hook you up with who to talk to, possible places where you can get your Solitaire built if you don't want to build it yourself like we're doing. So we'll give you some more information on that. So just contact us through the website, and we'll help you out there. And if you choose to have us consult with you, we'll do that too. So we'll go over that at the end of the video. But for right now, let's head over to the site, and we'll see where we're at on SV Lynx, a Solitaire 1520. Today we're beginning with giving a light sanding of the barrier coat, just to smooth out any little bit of orange peel, and also to just rough up the surface properly to put on the copper coat that we're going to be doing in about 3-4 days from now. So Brian's starting from the stern and working, and I'm starting up here at the bow, and we're going to work out and meet someone in the middle. He's going to do that little end piece right there, because his oscillating sander will work better on that little curved area up there, so I left that. But we're doing it's an incredibly light sand. We don't want to go through because this barrier coat isn't all that thick. So quick light sand with 80 grit sand. So that about concludes the light sanding of the barrier coat. We already did the other side, and so that didn't take long, 30-40 minutes, and that's ready for copper coat now. So next thing up, because we just don't want dew on, it's not going to rain, but we're going to cover this and until Saturday basically, and then we'll take off the cover, wipe it all down really good, and get to the copper coat. We're getting ready to flip those hulls over soon, so that means we need to finish up the cradles. They're almost done, but we have to make the fiberglass strip that goes over each of the hulls, and there's a piece of carpet that goes onto that. And so the way we make it first is we lay the carpet onto the hull, and then we fiberglass over the top of that, because we know that this thickness will be on there eventually. So right now I'm going to cut some lengths. We need 4 of these for the 4 cradles. So I've marked our line here. Now I'm going to cut the first one. Okay, 1 down, 3 to go. With our project being slightly over budget now due to our shenanigans with our shipping containers and tunnel tin, we have to save money where we can. So one of our good friends, which you can see in one of our other videos, Rebecca, she was here for a couple different times, like when we were putting the basalt on. And she donated all this carpet to us so that we didn't have to go buy some. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's all the little things that add up, so every little bit helps. Cutting these at 22 inches wide because the forms are 20 inches wide, and I'm just letting it hang over about 1 inch on each side. And that'll do it. This will be number 4, and we'll be all set. All right, on to the next phase. So today, we're putting our barrier coat on this hull, but we have a very minor problem. It's not a big deal, but when we had this particular canoe on the forms, because remember we use the same forms for both canoes, so we had it on there, we should have gone in underneath and marked the water line, transferred it over from the forms, but we didn't do that. And so on the second hull, when we built it on there, we did transfer them from the forms properly. So we know on that hull exactly where the water line is, but we didn't ever mark it on this one. But that's okay, because we got that hull over there correct. All we have to do is go over there on either side here and measure down from their water line to the bottom at each of the bulkhead marks. And the bulkhead marks are still on the inside of this, so we can look underneath and find where they are. So we can match up the bulkhead on that and the distance from the very bottom up to here for the water line, and put marks all along this hull, which we've done. And now what we're going to do is take our laser level and get it along here, and then we'll make sure that that laser level is coming to the exact same distance down as that hull. So we'll verify back and forth until we've got these hulls identical as far as the water line goes, and then we'll put on our masking tape line on both sides. So that's what we're up to right now, and we're just looking down underneath it here, finding that bulkhead, which is right here, and then measuring the exact same distance as that hull is on this, and marking, and there we go. So we have those marks down there, and we're gonna go get the laser level now.
Okay, getting our laser level set up so that we can get our marks right there right now. That's close.
We had a small issue here. When we checked the marks with the level, they weren't lining up. And one was high, one was low. We checked the other couple, same problem. Then we discovered, or at least thought about it, and realized that we moved this hull over here and put it on these stands with no thought to the level of this hull. So we've now leveled the hull properly, front and back and side to side, so that we can check those marks again. So we've got our laser level, but the problem is in this bright sunlight, we can only see it for about 15 or 18 feet. But that's okay, because what we're doing is we're putting some dash marks right along the green line so that when we're putting the tape down, we don't have to be able to see the laser light. So if we look over here, we just come through and mark these right on the green line, and then we'll follow this with the tape. And we just keep moving the laser down. I had to move, sorry. It's getting a little faint here, so there we go. We've got dash marks all the way down. We finished transferring all the marks for our tape that we're going to put on both sides of the hull, and they match up nicely coming around the front here, so it's all good. And then we double checked to make sure it's the same on both hulls, and it is. So we're confident that this is good. So right now what we're doing is just wiping down where the tape's going to go, but we're not wiping the whole hull yet because it's still a few hours, 2 or 3, before we're going to start putting the barrier coat on. So we don't want to wipe it down in case it gets any dust in between. So we're going to just wipe it off so we can put the tape on, make sure it sticks good. And then after lunch, right before we're going to start putting the barrier coat on, we'll wipe down the whole hull where the barrier coat's going to go. So that's what Brian's up to here. He's just cleaning the line for the tape right now. All right, so got the water line marked. That was a bad mark. We marked it off. The correct one is here. So that's perfect. And he's just about done wiping the other side, so I'll put down the other tape on the other side and we'll be ready to paint after lunch. We're doing after lunch because my sister and her husband, so Rhonda and Mike, are coming by to be our mixers so that Brian and I can constantly roll, him down one side, me down the other, and they keep mixing. So we'll get to that in a minute.
We're going to get started doing the barrier coat, and that means we've got to get this all mixed up. So basically 1 can of hardener goes in 1 gallon of the product here for our barrier coat from TotalBoat, one of our great sponsors. Thank you, TotalBoat. And we're going to have my sister Rhonda here. She's going to be doing the mixing, and this stuff is needs a lot of mixing in the can. There's a solid part that's like, you know, more consistency than Jello down here. We got to get that thing all nicely mixed, so we'll do that with a power thing here. And she'll be doing that, the mixing and such, and the induction periods and the stirring and the thinner afterwards and all that good stuff, and along with Admiral and her husband Mike over here. So the 3 of them are going to be doing this. They'll be mixing as fast as they can all the way through. Just as soon as they get one going through the induction, they'll start working on the next one. Now we're not doing the whole can. You can, but it sets up pretty fast, and we don't want it that fast. So we're going to subdivide it into smaller containers so that we can not have it start hardening up on us, because this stuff isn't cheap. It's about $300 per canoe. So the canoe we're doing today is about $300 worth of this stuff. That's a really round number. It's not exact, but approximately.
Wow.
So we don't harden up on us prematurely, and it is an epoxy. So once you mix those 2 things, they're going to have a life before they start hardening up. So the first thing though is to get this one stirred up. So I'm going to let her take care of that while we go prep a couple things, and we'll get her a mask on, because this stuff's going to have some fragrance to it. We don't want to breathe that in.
We're getting ready to mix, and so I've been explaining to Marianne what the mixing is, and so Marianne's job is going to be to put in the epoxy, both the paint part and the hardener, and she's got marked things here on the 3-to-1 scale, which is the mix ratio. And as soon as she gets that at the right ratio, she's going to hand it off to the stirring team over here, and the stirring team is going to stir. And once they're done stirring, then they're going to put it back on the table in order here of batches that we're going. And then we're going to tell our Alexa device, which is up there in the corner. We just tell her that we want a certain amount of minutes for each induction period of 15 minutes, because we can tell her many different batches. And so she'll tell the Alexa to tell her when the induction's done, each batch is done. And at that point, the next phase is, which is a little bit of thinner. It's going to go into this cup where that line was, and basically it's 5% of the epoxy primer thinner that's going to go into each of these. They will then stir again, and then they'll hand this off to Brian and I, and we'll be rolling down both sides of the hull over here, and they just keep delivering and mixing as fast as they can, and we keep painting, and that's the plan. So off we go. Okay, it's time to start rolling on the port canoe. Yay! Finally, get this baby done so we can get our copper coat on and flip it over. That'll be a happy day. Coat number 1 is coming along nicely. We have to get, with the amount of paint we have on these 2 quarts, we have to get about 2/3 of the way down on this first coat. So it's important that it goes on pretty thin. Full coverage. So while I'm going down that side, Brian's working this one down here. Looking good. Soon there, on coat number 1 at least. And over in the mixing area, we're waiting on the timer to go off for the next one, so a slight break. Ron is doing the first stir, Mike's doing the thinner stir, because sometimes they both need to be stirring at the same time. So we divided the jobs up, and Marianne's the pour person, to be politically correct, and not P-O-O-R, although sometimes we feel that way after having spent all our money on the boat. But no, P-O-U-R person. Getting towards the end of coat number 1. As soon as we get this one done, we're back to the front of the bow of the boat there and start coat number 2. So plenty of time, more than enough time to set up, although we'll check it. You got to make sure you don't put it on until it's tacky to the touch, where you leave a thumbprint, but no paint comes away on your thumb. However, I don't anticipate that that's going to be a problem. And then we come to the front and go do it again. That's what just starting now, the second coat. So, closing in on the end of coat number 2. And we'll head back to the bow and do coat number 3. All right, let's fire up coat number 3. Oh, it's always nice to be on the last coat, because then you don't have to think, oh, I got to do this whole hull again. But this is the final coat for today. So, not another 30 minutes and should be about done for today. Now when we get to the copper coat, that's going to take a lot longer per day, because this is only 3 coats, but that's going to be more like 6. So we'll have to start that earlier in the morning. This one we didn't start till 1 p.m. because the weather's been really cool, and we didn't want to try this in temperatures that were too cool. So it's about 70 degrees right now, which is really nice for this. But we're warming up this week, so that means that by the time we do this on, I think that copper coat's going to be 3 days to 4 days from now when we do it. And it's going to be warmer days by then. So we can start a little earlier in the morning, and also the copper coat has to go 24 hours with a temperature no more than 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That in Celsius. And next week, we couldn't have done this right now, but next week it warms up to the point where it's 51 degrees Fahrenheit at night, the coldest. And that means that those 2 days next week, we can do the copper coat. So we're going to do 2 marathon days in a row, 1 hole each, and get them done those 2 warm days. We'll get going while the getting's good. This is coat number 3 towards the very end. We're coming up on the stern. And that will conclude our not only port canoe, but all of our barrier coat painting on this boat. So this will be an end to this, and on to bottom paint, but it's really bottom epoxy in this case with copper coat. But this will be the end of our task for these 2 canoes. And boy, are we going to be glad to be done with these canoes, period. Flipping them over will be great. Of course, we have to do the insides, but that's not going to take us long because we don't have to fair the inside. Just some other work on it, but we'll get it done quickly. And get a move on to getting the bulkheads across and making this thing look like a catamaran finally. This working on parts is for the birds. We want to be working on the boat so it looks like a boat. And that's coming soon. Very soon. Speaking of winter, and all the extra rain we're supposed to have gotten so far, and normally in Southern California, it just doesn't rain that much, even in the winter. But today is Brian's birthday. Say hello. Turn the camera, Brian. There we go.
I moved.
It's Brian's birthday today. Instead of doing what he always does on his birthday, which is go up to our local mountains and go snow skiing, because they give you a free lift ticket on your birthday. And so Brian has gone, we don't know how many years, at least 12, because we have video of him doing it for the last 12 years, and he's probably done it for a lot more years than that. And this is the first year in all of those years that there's no snow up there for him to ski on, so he couldn't go. So I made Brian work on his birthday since he couldn't go snow skiing. But the point of this is, not that Brian's working on his birthday, bless his heart, but that in a year that we're supposed to have more than normal rain in Southern California, we don't have any snow up in the mountains, which means that it's not really raining around here. So so much for weather prediction and El Nino and all that stuff. So far, knock on wood, so far it's been a kind year for us. Now, Southern California just doesn't get much rain normally. I mean, we have periods of 7-8 months where there's no rain at all. And then in the winter, we get the occasional storm coming through, but really even then, we don't get that much rain. Of course, they predicted a lot more for this year. But so far, so good. That makes working on this boat outside quite a bit easier. But like I say, Southern California, I don't think I'd attempted this in many other places in the world, a few, but here the weather is such that you can get away with doing a lot of outdoor work because our average temperatures are 80 degrees. And like next week, middle of winter, we're going to be in the 70s. So it's plenty nice with no humidity. So, or very low humidity, I should say. It makes for great conditions for working outdoors. Not that we chose to do that. If we had the choice to build it indoors, of course we would have done that.
but the money just wasn't there to build this boat and also pay an exorbitant $100,000 to build it indoors. So we're getting it done, and it's coming out really nicely. Take a look down the hole. That was the end of coat number 3. We're done for the day. All right, the big moment where we get to pull the tape off and see our nice new paint job. Isn't that gorgeous? We'll have the Admiral pull this side of the tape. All right, all set. It came out great. Don't worry about any of these little spots like this. That's not actually paint. That's the black marker that we were marking when we marked it with the laser. So that's a perfect straight line all the way down there. Looks great. The way the hull curves actually down, this isn't level at the bottom and such, is a optical illusion that this waterline isn't correct, but the laser level doesn't lie. This is level all the way down, so it is correct. So as you can see at the lot, we achieved our goals of the week to get that barrier coat on, and we even got the starboard hull barrier coat sanded. We'll sand the port one that we just did maybe a day before we put on the copper coat, which is coming up in just 3 days from now. So we'll be getting to that very soon, but as promised, we wanted to talk about a little bit of a different subject with you.
Yes, we want to talk about the Solitaire line of Schionning catamarans, and let's start off by talking about the Solitaire 1360.
These are kit boats that you can build or have somebody else build for you, and because they're a kit, you can actually do some modifications to them as well, and we can talk about that as well. But first, let's just look at the boats themselves. Here we go. So
this is the Solitaire 1360, a performance cruising catamaran kit. Her length at waterline is 44 feet or 13.60 meters, which makes her one of the more popular length cats for a cruising couple, with similar space and comfort to a production boat. But she is a capable blue water cruiser for a circumnavigation voyage with excellent waterline and beam ratio, and a high power to weight ratio as well.
one of the key features to the entire Solitaire line, including the 1360, are dagger boards. Now, some people think the dagger boards are not necessary on a cruising boat, but we beg to differ. Yes, they allow your cat to point higher into the wind, but that's not the only or even the most important advantage of dagger boards. We think that the shallow draft you achieve with the dagger boards up is often crucial for getting a nice anchorage near the beach in a crowded bay, or when they allow you to enter a cut in an atoll reef sooner rather than bobbing for hours, or access you can get to go up into a protected inland waterway over shallow entries. In addition, even if you don't care about sailing close to the wind and prefer downwind sailing, your catamaran will sail faster with dagger boards, and that includes sailing in lighter winds when the swells are calmer. They also add to safety since you can remove a tripping hazard, possibly causing a capsize, by configuring the dagger boards properly during a heavy blow, which is something you can't do with mini keels. But to each their own. For us, dagger boards are important for the speed of a performance cat and the comfort of a cruising cat. So, off my soapbox and back to the Solitaire 1360. With her dagger boards up, she only drafts 0.6 meters or about 24 inches. Sweet.
Unlike many performance cats, there's also some decent load carrying capacity on the 1360, and if you have taller crew, there's plenty of headroom in both hulls and salon, about 2.05 meters or 6 foot 7 inches.
Schionning chose to offer the 1360 with twin helms at the stern with an articulating arm that allows the steering wheel to be out, where you can see down the side, or inboard, where you're a little more protected in bad weather. There is a slight modification we would choose to make to this for better seating comfort while at the helm, and we can go over that change with anyone interested in the 1360.
Like all the Solitaire line, she also has kick-up rudders, which are necessary if you want a cat with shallow draft when the dagger boards are up in certain conditions, including beaching the boat. You can also see that they went with davits for the dinghy, but we also designed a modification to allow a gantry style lift, which could be an option if you like the 1360.
There's a nice seating area with a table in the cockpit, plus a U-shaped galley, U-shaped table and seating, plus a forward-facing nav station. Everything you need for a good catamaran layout.
In the hulls, you may opt for a 4-cabin layout or an owner's suite in one hull with 2 cabins on the other side. In the case of the starboard owner's layout, you have a head and larger shower forward, storage down the hull, and the cabin bed at the stern. In the port hull, you have a queen-size bed in the cabin forward with lots of storage areas, a head and separate shower mid-hull used by both cabins, and a large queen-size bed to stern.
All right, well, that's the smallest of the line, the 1360, which is about a 44-foot length of boat. And you can see they've done some changes to it over the 1520 or 1490, which we're going to show you in a moment. But if you hadn't seen those before, trust me, there's a little bit difference with that. And each of the ones in the line is a bit different. They're not just size changes.
So, next up, let's take a look at the Solitaire 1490.
Right, so let's bring that up. The Solitaire 1490 is a step up in waterline from the 1360, being 14.95 meters or 49 feet in length. Daggerboards up, she still only drafts 24 inches. The payload is around 3,500 kilograms or 7,716 pounds, yet she still has a 0.84 meter or 33-inch bridge deck clearance, which is excellent. Headroom in the hulls is still 2.05 meters, 6 foot 7 inches, but she has a little less in the salon at 1.97 meters or 6 foot 4 inches.
In the hulls, the extra length gives you some additional space in the heads. In the owner's hull, you have 2 sinks plus a separate throne room and separate shower. Nice. In the guest hull, you have 2 heads, ensuite for the cabins, which both now have a door to close off the cabins and private doors into the heads. There's a shared shower between the 2 heads, accessed from either. If you choose, there is an alternate layout where you have 1 head and 1 shower, if that's your preference.
The salon has a U-shaped galley, forward-facing nav station, and a large table. There are alternate layouts for this that we can go over with you if you choose, or maybe you have one you like. Well, that can also be done.
Out in the cockpit, there are some major differences in the helm layout. On the Solitaire 1490, Schionning designed a bulkhead steering position with an articulating helm arm that allows you to lower the wheel down to steer in the protection of the cockpit, looking through the salon to steer, or you can raise it up and sit at the 2-person helm seat for more visibility in better weather conditions. She also features a table at the stern bench with a smaller one to port.
All right, well, that's the Solitaire 1490. That was the original Solitaire, the first one that we found when we were looking to buy a kit boat, and we just fell in love with how close that was to exactly what we were looking for, both a performance boat and a cruising boat. But we really wanted to make quite a few changes to it because it was about 80% of what we wanted, which was closer than any other catamaran we found, certainly in kits. And so to make those changes, we had to work with Schionning and collaborate on this new design, which I 3D modeled and brought to them and got approved, and we went through iterations and all that stuff. And if you want to see a tour of that, there's a virtual tour of our design changes in this video up here. But that was the 1490 that we just looked at. So now let's take a look.
Yes, let's take a look at our baby, the 1520.
Right. Now this is the boat that we are building and are quite in love with. The 1520 was largely based off of the 1490 hulls, but we made major changes to the roof, salon, cockpit, and stern as well as slightly lengthening the cat to about 50 feet. So, Schionning decided to make this another model in the line. Like the first two Solitaires, she only drafts 24 inches, or 0.6 meters, dagger boards up.
We won't go into all the details of the changes we made. You can watch them in that video. But here's a quick list. Number 1, in the salon, we changed the windows to create better views from inside the salon and increase the headroom. We also added a stand-up refrigerator freezer, plus 2 more top-loading freezer refrigerators for more long-distance cruising. And we added some floor storage areas for food. We moved the nav station to starboard and added a second smaller table area forward of the larger table. Both tables convert to beds, one a single and one close to a queen.
We modified the cockpit in several ways. We removed the stern table to make a straight walkway between the stern winches. We also made the seating in the stern bench more suitable for lounging. And we moved the starboard bench inwards to create a bike garage and expand the helm seating to 3 wide. Finally, we increased the size of the port table.
We also made major changes to the helm. We went with a semi-raised helm position with separate line handling area forward. We added a hardtop over the helm with a lifting window and drop-down enclosures. Now you can turn the helm area into a small, weatherproof room for comfortable watches, eliminating the needs for the articulating helm. Just to note, since we don't have to look through the salon, that made it so we could add the stand-up refrigerator we mentioned earlier. We also made it so that the steps up to the helm from the cockpit led to a straight path that takes you out to the side deck for an easier way to get forward when the need arises.
We removed all hatches off the side deck walkways for ease of travel and safety, but still have an overhead hatch in each cabin, plus all cabins, the heads and shower, each have port lights for added ventilation.
At the stern, we made more major changes. We added diver lockers on either side, which creates a flat area on top for a sink and barbecue. We modified the stern shape to feature a gantry-style dinghy lift, which we think is superior.
Plus, we moved the 2 stern winches outboard, which will work better for the permanent lines that come back to handle raising and lowering the dagger boards from the comfort and safety of the cockpit. Finally, we added closing gates to keep the stern from getting pooped, and just as a safety feature on passage.
We left the cabins mostly the same, though we did lengthen the bed slightly to a full 7 foot or 2.13 meters, making the 2 stern cabins have a California king-size bed, and the forward cabins a queen size, though also 7 foot in length for taller crew use. We did add 2 places in the center hallways for small washer-dryers, 1 in each hull.
One last major change is to the propulsion system. She is a diesel-electric hybrid with a twist. She uses a single 80 horsepower diesel in one hull with a 25 kilowatt electric motor in parallel. In the other hull is just a single 25 kilowatt electric motor. That means we can power the boat with 2 25 kilowatt electric motors, or the single diesel engine, or the diesel can power the 25 kilowatt motor in the opposite hull, turning both props with 1 diesel engine. Both use shaft drives for simplicity. This is an extremely versatile system that is fuel efficient, costs less, weighs less, has less maintenance, and has redundant power options. We think it's currently the best propulsion system on the water.
There are more smaller changes, but those are the big ones we made to create the amazing Solitaire 1520. Now let's take a look at the largest boat in the line, the 1740.
Right, this is the newest boat that they've made, and it's about 10 feet longer than our Solitaire 1520 at 60 feet, where ours is 50 feet. And with that extra space, they've added in something kind of interesting on the front. So let's take a look. She is 57 feet 8 inches at the waterline, or 17.4 meters, yet only drafts 1 foot 8 inches or 0.55 meters with dagger bores up. The biggest difference in this model over the others is that Schionning chose to create a forward cockpit area with the added water length of the 1740. There's a door coming from the salon into the forward cockpit seating area. This would be very nice to have while at anchor, since the wind generally comes from the front.
The second big change is a seating area on top of the cockpit roof, accessed from behind the helm. They went back to a bulkhead helm position to make room for the stairs up to the seating area.
Down in the hulls, they added a larger bed area in the stern cabins with access from one side of the bed rather than from the foot like the other Solitaire models. However, these do cut into the area in the cockpit, so they opted for a folding table design. They also added a walkway behind the stern bench seat for easier handling of the dinghy. In the salon, they went with an island in the galley, plus an L-shaped seating area with a table. There's a forward-facing nav station and an interior helm position looking out through the forward cockpit. That means they didn't have to go with an articulating helm position at the bulkhead.
In the hulls, there are wider, standard-sized rectangular beds in the forward cabins and those large side access beds to the stern.
If you want our opinion on these design changes, from both the new 1360 or the 1740, we would be happy to go over what we like, don't like, and what we would personally modify. But these are the current layouts being offered by Schionning Designs. Just remember, they are willing to work with you on some changes, like the salon furniture layout and a few other things. We can discuss all of those if you're interested in one of these models. Just drop me a line before getting started with Schionning, and we will point you in the right direction and get you talking with the right person at Schionning Designs.
So that's the Solitaire 1740. And with that, we've taken a look at the entire Solitaire line. Pretty cool set of catamarans.
Yep.
So, what do we have coming up next week? Well, we're going to be doing the copper coat anti-fouling on both canoes.
Right, so we're all prepped for that, so we should be ready to go. The only, of course, issue is that these are 2 very long days, and they're right in a row. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have a window of 2 days where the temperature's not going to get too low at night that we can get that done. So we are on a schedule, and they will be done on those 2 days, regardless of how long that takes us. So thank you all for watching our videos. We really do appreciate you, and thank you to all of our patrons who help keep this project going. We appreciate it.
Yes, and don't forget to like and subscribe and click on the bell icon to be notified of our next video.
Right, so we'll see you next week for some coppery footage. See you then.
Bye.